Well, hello there. It's Anne. Anne Eliza Davidson Churchill. I'm here. Oh, which is probably very unexpected, considering my horrible death when I was knocked off my carriage and hit my head. That's really all I've been known for, except for the fact that I was married to Ezra Churchill, the greatest shipbuilder in all of Hantsport. He built some really great ships. From the day we married, I didn't have a moment to myself. I had 10 children I had to take care of. Actually, I should have been known as the greatest mother of all time. I guess that wasn't very important. Other than that, I didn't really have a lot going on where I was. Of course, until my husband and I built a house for our son, John. You know the one? The Churchill house? Well, since it's all people really remember about me, let me tell you a little bit more about my death. Well, one day I was riding along on my carriage all by myself when my horse got spooked. I didn't have a chance to see what it was before I flew off my carriage, landed on the ground, and hit my head so hard I was bleeding non-stop. I was still alive and breathing, but I was there for so long before someone found me. I had already passed. Now, this was one, because I was bleeding non-stop, and two, I hit my head so hard I wouldn't have been able to make it. The year was 1861, and I was 53 years old. It's sad, you know. I was still very young to die, and I had a big, happy family. It's too bad, but what can you do about it? Just remember, be careful if you ever decide to go on a carriage. Oh, or should I say a car?
Good evening. You've probably heard of me before, right? Well, I am Ben Jackson, and I'm here to tell you my story. I was born in 1835, January 2nd in Lockhartville. I married my beautiful wife, Rachel. We had 5 kids together. In August 1864, I sailed to the United States to fight the Civil War. I took my buddy's place as he was too scared to fight. He paid the government $300 for the substitution. During the battle, a grenade landed aboard, and I picked it up and threw it overboard as far as I could so it wouldn't blow up on any of us. I also disarmed a ton of torpedoes. Basically, they're little water bombs. And my crewmates were very grateful that I disarmed those because, well, it could have killed us all if I didn't. Now that I think about it, I guess I'm considered a hero. But that day I sailed out there was a day I will never forget. I also earned a Civil War campaign medal for my bravery and $900 in cash. Anyway, after I was shipped back to Nova Scotia, I settled down with my wife and 5 kids and created a little farm with my family. Later on, I sailed back out to the sea on a ship built by Ezra Churchill. My passing was sad for me because I knew I wouldn't be able to see my family again. But I felt bad for my family because they were probably so upset when they heard about me passing. But I died peacefully in my loving home where I was happy and safe. Well, that's my story, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Goodbye.
What? No. Those planks have to be tightened up. You gotta get the deck tight, otherwise she'll spring a leak. Oh, hello. I'm John Burton North, who you probably heard of because at the time, I was one of the best shipbuilders in Hantsport. Now you're probably thinking I was dead, and you'd be right, but here I am to tell you some stories from some of my adventures. Now first, why don't I tell you about myself? I got married to Elizabeth Esther Ells in 1855, and we had 7 kids, but sadly, 2 didn't make it. I started out building ships in Laura Churchill's yard, but then after I got started, I made my own shipyard on a plot of land on the waterfront. One of my most memorable stories takes place in 1878. I had gotten the biggest construction order yet, and I started right away, and after 12 years of hard work, I finished. So I couldn't wait to launch her. And a little while after we launched that ship, a tragedy struck her. She burned at sea. Now, the whole point of this story is that even if you work hard for something for years, it can still go up in flames. Though a few may have struck tragedy, a lot of my ships were successful, so don't ever give up. On February 27th, 1907, I died. But the saddest part is that for 8 years before my death, I was paralyzed. So all I could do was watch the ships come to and fro. No, lad, no. That goes there. That goes there. Sorry, I have to go. Shipbuilding, you have to get it right.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Ben Jackson. You probably think I'm dead, don't you? Well, I am here to tell you my life story from birth to death. I was born January 2nd, 1835 in Lockerville. I was a Nova Scotian who became a sailor, farmer, and an American Civil War soldier. The Battle of Mobile Bay is one I'll never forget. I was just doing my job, which was disarming torpedoes. All of a sudden, one of the torpedoes exploded and it threw me back. After recovering in the hospital, I was discharged on June 2nd, 1865. I earned the Civil War Campaign Medal, and I was entitled to receive a pension from the U.S. government. I returned to Nova Scotia, where I operated a small farm and went to sea again as a sailor aboard ships owned by Ezra Churchill, and I say he was my best friend. I died August 20th, 1915, and I was buried in Lockerville, Nova Scotia, in an unmarked grave.
Oh, hi everyone. You're probably wondering who I am. My name is Anne Eliza Davidson, and I was born March 5th, 1808. I was 16 years old when I married Ezra Churchill, November 10th, 1824. What a wonderful day that was. That's not that old, is it? I was a very busy woman. I had 10 kids, you know. I had 3 boys and 7 girls. Every day, I like to go on my carriage. I do it because it relaxes me. Did you know that's how I died? So it was a hot day in my town, and I was just riding in my carriage like I do every day when something spooked my horse. I don't know what it was, but the carriage flipped and I hit my head on a rock. Weird way to die, huh? So that's how I died. So be careful when you are on a carriage or whatever you drive nowadays.
Good evening. You probably heard of me before, right? Well, I'm Ben Jackson. I'm here to tell you my story. I was born in January the 2nd, 1835 in Lockerville. I married my beautiful wife, Rachel. We had 5 kids. In August 1864, I sailed to the United States to fight in the Civil War. I took my buddy's place as he was too scared to fight. He paid the government $300 for the substitution. Now, during the battle, a grenade landed aboard, and I picked it up and threw it overboard as far as I could so it wouldn't blow any of us up. I also disarmed a ton of torpedoes, basically little water bombs. And my crewmates were very, very grateful that I disarmed those because, well, it could have killed all of us if I didn't. Now that I think of it, I'm a hero. But the day I sailed out there was a day I'll never forget. I also earned a Civil War campaign medal and $900 in cash. Anyways, after I was shipped back to Nova Scotia, I settled down with my wife and 5 kids and created a little farm with my family. Later on, I sailed back out into the sea on a ship built by Laura Churchill. My passing was sad for me because I knew I wouldn't be able to see my family again. But I feel bad for my family. They probably were so upset when they heard about my passing. But I passed away peacefully in my lovely home where I was happy and safe. That's my story. I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye.
I am Ezra Churchill, the greatest shipbuilder ever. You might be wondering why I'm alive since I died on May 8th, 1874. Well, I'm here to tell my story. It all started when I was born on May 18th, 1806. I had a mom named Elizabeth and a dad named Ezra who was lost at sea when I was very young. I had a good life growing up in Yarmouth. After I married Ann Davidson, we moved to Hantsport to start our family. We had 10 kids together and we made a house for one of our sons, which is known as the Churchill House. And then she died in a terrible carriage accident that led to her death. Soon after Ann died, I married Rachel Burgess and had more kids with her. I had a really good life.
Hi, I'm William Hall, and you are probably wondering why I'm here. I came back from the dead so I can tell you all about my life. So let's talk about my birth. I was born in Horton on April 28, 1827. If it weren't for my parents escaping slavery in Maryland, I would not be here. Since I grew up next to the ocean, I knew I would end up on the sea sooner or later. And that's exactly what happened. I was 17 when I started working on the sea. I thought about my family when I was out on the sea all the time, especially my 2 sisters, Rachel and Mary. Guess what? When I was still kicking around, I got a reward for my actions in 1857 siege of Lucknow during the Indian Rebellion. Another officer and I continued to load and fire a 24-pounder gun at the walls after the rest of the crew had been killed or injured. I was the first black person, the first Nova Scotian, and one of the first Canadians to receive the British Empire's highest award for bravery, the Victoria Cross. Now you're probably wondering how I died. I died August 27, 1904, at home from paralysis when I was 77 years old. And 4 years before I died, I saw King George V when he was visiting Nova Scotia and recognized my medals during a parade. I didn't need much recognition. I was just happy to be able to help. See you later.
Oh, hello there. Didn't see you there. My name is Anne Eliza Davidson Churchill. You can probably tell I didn't die of old age or anything like that. I mean, look at me. I got blood all over my clothes. Ugh. I lived to the age of 53. I guess some people might call me old. I worked at home and raised my kids. I was married to the Honorable Ezra Churchill. You probably heard his name. After all, he is a famous shipbuilder. I had 10 kids, 7 girls and 3 boys. Unfortunately, my son Cyrus died from his sister throwing his teddy bear into the streets. When Cyrus ran to get it, he got stomped on by a horse named Cisco Alpaco. I have been dead for 160 years, and I'm still a little tired, but beautiful. If you ever want to see my grave, it's in Hantsport. If you've ever been to the Churchill house, no, it was built by me. Well, my husband. I died on my way home on the horse Bunting. She took fright and threw me off. I hit my head on a rock and bled to death, hence my clothes. My birthday is March 5th, 1808, and I'm 3 years older than my brother. I died on August 30th, 1861. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm probably taking your time. Anyways, have a great day and good night.
Hello. You probably think I'm dead, but I came from the dead to talk to you about my life. And you're probably thinking about the road, but I am the real Ben Jackson. Even though I'm really thankful for the road, I was born in January the 2nd, 1835. My father said I was going to be a great sailor. I was armed and ready for the day to come. I married Rachel Cartier. We had 5 children. These children were blessed, and I loved them to death. In 1864, I sailed to the United States during the Civil War. I took the opportunity to fight for the Union Army by substituting for Lewis Saunders. I took part in the Battle of Mobile Bay in August 1864. During the battle, I retrieved a grenade that had landed on deck, and I threw it overboard before it could explode. Now, Mobile Bay was littered with torpedoes, and I was disarmed a number of these which threatened Union vessels. Unfortunately, one of the torpedoes exploded, wounding me. After convalescing in hospital, I was discharged on June 2nd, 1865. I earned the Civil War Campaign Medal, and I was entitled to receive a pension from the U.S. government. Now, I returned to Nova Scotia where I operated a small farm, and I went to sea again as a sailor aboard ships owned by Laura Churchill. And can I say he was my best bud? I died on August the 20th, 1915, and I was buried at Lockerville, Nova Scotia, in an unmarked grave.
Good day, modern people. Here I am. I've been dead for a long time and I'm bored of it. Would you look at that wound on my head? It is almost gone. I almost forgot. I need to make a proper introduction. My name is Anne Eliza Davison Churchill, daughter of Ozza Davison and Rohada Fox Davison, and let me say, I died a most awful death. I died on August 30th, 1861. It was a hot, sunny day, and as you can imagine, it was hot wearing a corset and all of those layers. The house was full because I had 10 children, 3 sons and 7 daughters. But most of them are teens or young adults. Ezra was away working to finish building a ship that was set to launch later in the week, and I realized I was going to need some food to make a big dinner that night because we were going to celebrate the launching of the new ship. I prepared the horse and carriage, and off we went to the market. All I could hear was the sound of my horse's hooves clicking on the rocks and the dirt path. In that moment I was sure nothing could go wrong. Suddenly my horse was on his hind legs, and the carriage jerked back. I did not have a good grip, and I flew out of the carriage and smacked my head on a rock. It did not hurt because it all happened so fast. I started to panic when I saw the blood gushing out of my head. My horse had ran away, but to my surprise I had full consciousness. I could hear and see and talk as if nothing had happened. I knew that I would not make it, and that I would never see Ezra or any of my children or friends ever again. So be careful. Maybe think twice about taking a horse.
I think that this is a new record for my longest nap. The last thing I remember is falling asleep in my bed in 1915. What year is it anyway? I'm so sorry I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ben Jackson, by the way. No, I know what you're thinking. Not the Ben Jackson Rhodes. It's me, the person. You know, the guy that chucked a grenade off a ship? I also stopped torpedoes. You know, I was not the one supposed to go to war. It was my friend Lewis Saunders who asked me to go instead. But I don't want to bore you, so moving on. I went back to Hantsport and farmed a little, and I even had a family with my wife Rachel. But I went back to sea on Laura Churchill ships. I don't get much money, but I don't care. I like being on the sea, and I got $17 a month from the war, so I had a good amount of money for my family. I must go. The sun is at its highest and bright, so I know it's almost dinner. Thanks for stopping by.
Well, as you probably know, I, Anne Eliza Churchill Davison, passed away on August the 30th, 1861, when I was thrown off my horse, hit my head on a rock. Now, it may seem like a foolish death, but it was not my fault. Oh, I knew that horse was cursed the minute my husband brought it home, but he wouldn't listen to me. Anywho, I'm not one to hold a grudge, but I am here to tell you a little bit more about my life and all the events that took place. So I guess I should start at the beginning. Now, I was born on March the 5th, 1808 in Falmouth, Nova Scotia. My parents were Asa Davison and Rhoda Fox Davison, and my brother was Edward Lee Davison. Now, on November the 10th, 1824, I married my husband, Ezra Churchill, and we got married in Hantsport, Nova Scotia. I know what you're likely thinking. I was married at 16, and my husband was 20. But this was completely normal at the time. Why, there were girls who were 13 and 14 who married men 3 times their age. So really, I was quite fortunate. Now, shortly after that, my husband and I moved to a house of our own, and we had 10 children. That's right, 10. 7 girls, 3 boys. And I'm going to try to list them all here for you. There was Anne Eliza Churchill Shaft, Joanna Churchill Reed, Mary Jane Churchill Wooliver, George Washington Churchill, Rhoda Churchill Newcomb, John Wiley Churchill, Elizabeth Churchill Woodworth, Rebecca Churchill Black, and Cyrus Warren Churchill and Regina Churchill Wooliver. Quite a few, but really, people had more. And let's see, now then in 1841, Ezra bought over 60 acres of land in Hantsport and built a major shipbuilding port and actually became one of the largest shipbuilders in Nova Scotia and one of the largest investors in Nova Scotia. Now, while he was doing this, I was home taking care of the children, though I'm not going to throw a fit because I'm not the only woman who experienced this type of misogyny. Now, not long after this, the tragedy that took my life, that ended my life, took place. Let's see. I was traveling home one night when my horse took fright. He was frightened because something had skittered in front of him. So it jumped up, threw me off of my carriage, and I hit my head on a rock. And that's what killed me. Now, my story may not be the most fascinating story, but I still live to be one of the best historical figures in Hantsport. And you have to say that's something. I mean, on the back of my tombstone it reads, "In memory of Anne, the beloved wife of Ezra Churchill. While driving alone in her wagon, the horse took fright, threw her out, and cut her head so that she bled to death in a short time. She had her senses and conversed until she died." Well, my husband married a year after my death, and I was buried at the Riverbank Cemetery in Hantsport. But you know, I am glad that the house my husband and I built for our son still stands today as a memorial of my life.
Hello there. My name is William Hall, and you're probably wondering how I'm able to talk to you even though I'm not alive anymore. Well, let me explain. I was born in Horton, Nova Scotia in 1827. My father was Jacob Hall, and my mother was Lucy Hall. They were enslaved in Maryland, and they escaped from American slave owners during the War of 1812. Then they were brought to freedom in Nova Scotia by the British Royal Navy for fighting with the British in the war. We first lived in Somerville, Nova Scotia, where my father worked in a shipyard operated by Abraham Cunard until we bought a farm across the Avon River at Horton Bluff. I first worked in the shipyards at nearby Hantsport, Nova Scotia, before going to sea when I was 17. I went to war when I was 18, and I was a member of the Naval Brigade that landed from the fleet to assist the ground forces manning heavy gun batteries. I received the Victoria Cross aboard the HMS Donegal in Queenston Harbour, Ireland, on October 28, 1859, and I was the first Black Canadian to get the Victoria Cross. But surprisingly enough, going to war was not how I died. And wouldn't you know it, I met King George V when I was at a parade in Hantsport. He recognized my medals and he wanted to talk to me, and I thought that was pretty cool. 3 years later, I died of paralysis, not able to move most of my body. The very sad thing is that I was buried without any of my military honors at an unmarked grave.
Hi, I'm Anne Churchill. You're probably wondering where my husband is, aren't you? I must admit, he was a better shipbuilder than John Burton, and I did want to marry him all along, but my husband Ezra and I built the Churchill house a long time ago for our son. It was my idea to build it, but of course he got all the credit. I had to stay home and do all the cooking and the laundry and look after all the kids. And we had a lot of kids, let me tell you. It's a piece of work, these kids. 10. I had 7 girls and 3 boys. Although Cyrus died when he was really young, I wasn't really all that sad about it. I lost a bit of child support. And did you know that the town expected me to go to his grave every day? Oh, God, you can only pretend to be sad so much. Shh. Well, here's how I died. I was on my way to visit my daughter, Mary Jane, and my grandchildren. My horse got spooked, and I, flew off the carriage and smacked my head and bled internally a whole bunch. And by the time somebody had found me, I'd already passed away. And then, a whole year later, as I looked down from heaven, I got to watch my husband marry Rachel. Ugh. They had 4 kids. Well, 3 of them died. I don't know whatever happened to them. Just. Well, that's all. All I have to say for life advice is marry rich and make sure they die before you do.
Hello there. You've probably seen my name as a road before. Does Ben Jackson Road ring any bells? It's me, the mighty Benjamin Jackson. I guess I might tell you some of my history. I was born in 1835, 2nd of January. A little bit more simple time. Nowadays, well, things are so confusing, all this technology, I'm getting distracted. When I was younger, I always wanted to sail the seas. Now, in 1864, I went to sail to fight in the war. I was scared. Almost everyone on the boat was scared. Now, I remember one time there was a grenade that came on to the boat. Now, I ran to it and chucked it onto the enemy boat. Everyone was cheering me on. I felt special, but couldn't lose focus.